For this lesson, we're going to explore logical operators and an or within an if statement when we're evaluating the expression, the Boolean expression, from which the if statement takes a decision either to execute if it's true, do something, or else do something else. All right, so we've seen already something like this. Int, let's say we have a program where we type something like this, int a equals 5, and then if a as a variable is greater or equal to 3, for example, we could say something like this, printf a was greater, a as a variable was greater or equal to 3. Okay, so this is a quick review of what we've done before. Else, you're going to do something like this, printf, and you're going to say that a is less than 3, right? So let's compile and run this for a second here. Compile and run. Oops. Let's see, where did I just make a mistake? Printf is correct. Let's see what it's saying here. I am missing, I have an extra parentheses. Okay, always read down what's going on. Okay, compile and run again. And there you have it. Let's see, I'm still getting an error. My printf here is backwards. Printf, there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and run this again. Compile and run. There you go. So we know that a is greater or equal to 3. Now, let's put a /n here and a /n here, so we get a new line every time any of these two prints out, right? So compile and run. Okay. All right, so a is definitely greater or equal to 3 since it's 5. We started out with a value of 5. Now, what if the value is 1? And let's compile and run. And in this case, as you can see, a is less than 3. So it's running the logic for us, and it's branching to the proper printf statement according to the value of a. Now, what if we wanted a range, right? So let's change the logic again. So we will vary this value. So let's make this one actually first come in from the user. So we'll ask the user to enter something. So maybe something like this, printf, enter a value for the variable a. Let's make it a runtime assignment to a. So scanf, %d, since it's an integer, and %a. Okay? Now, based on that, we will have different scenarios. So let's run this first again, just to make sure. Compile and run. And notice here, I'm going to give a value of 9. So obviously, I'm going to get a is definitely greater or equal to 3. Okay? So this is at runtime. Now, what if we wanted to change the logic? And let's rewrite. Let me just delete this part here, where we can identify where a is exactly in what range of values, for example. Let's say we want to identify when it's between 0 and 10. And let's say we want to identify when it's between 11 or greater than 10 up to 20. Okay? So we could do something like this. If, and first, let's just evaluate between 0 to 10. A is, and that includes greater or equal to 0. Okay? So we know that will be the lower bound of that range. But at the same time, it's got to be less or equal to 10. So the way to do this is the AND operator. So this is an AND. Okay? And, so that means both of them have to be true. Both a is greater or equal to 0 and a is less or equal to 10, inclusive. then we could say that A is between 0 and 10. All right, well, let's just test this part. So this here, as you can see, we're using a logical operator to evaluate a range. So what you want to do here is the lower end of the range, and this one here will be the upper end of the range. So let's compile and run this. And let's put a value like 5. We know 5 is right in the middle of that. So A is definitely between 0 and 10. Let's run this program again. And let's run. And let's put a value above it. So let's put an 11. Notice I'm not going to get anything because I don't have an else statement. Right? So as you can see, if it's false, simply do nothing. You do not need to print A is between anything, right? For this case. All right, so remember I mentioned something about verifying again other ranges, right? So can we do that? So can we verify if it's between or higher than 10 but less than or including 20? You could write another if statement, and you start with a lower range. Remember, we already included 10 in the first if statement, so the second if statement, we're going to exclude it. We're going to simply say A greater than 10 and, but this time we're going to include 20. A is less or equal to 20. Then we can printf A is between 11 and 20, which means it includes 11 and it includes 20 as values. Well, let's prove that. So notice here, so if I run this, compile and run, and if I put in the lower value, 11, within that range, notice the first if statement is not going to run. The second if statement picks up. Why didn't the first if statement not run? Well, simply, none of the conditions were, one of them was false. A greater or equal to 0 was true. However, A less or equal to 10 was false. It's an and condition. Both sides, right here and right here, have to be true for this to run. How about the next expression? A greater than 10? Great, we're there, it's 11. And is it less than 20 at the same time? At the same time, yes, that's an and condition. Okay? All right, fantastic. So now we're going to look at the or condition. So how do you write an or? Let's play with an or, and let's say something like this. Let me show you what's going to happen. If A is greater or equal to 0, or, and this is how you write the or, A is, let's say, less or equal to 20, right? Notice I'm putting a range here, but only one of them have to be true to print, all right? To actually execute the statement right under the if. So fundamentally, the or is completely different than an and. So we have to be really careful on how we pick which operator we want based on what our design requirements are. So what does this mean? A is greater than 0 or is less, I would say greater and equal or equal to 0, or, let me put comma here, or is less or equal to 20. All right, let's see if that's true, if the logic is correct. So this here again is an AND operator. This is an OR operator. These are logical operators, AND and OR. Let's see what happens. So let's compile and run here since I've made modifications. Let's put a value of 12 and let's try to understand what's going to happen. So if I put a 12, the first if statement will not execute its printf statement. We know this because it's not within this range. We will definitely get this and we will definitely get this. So let's see. So we got 2 lines of code printing out. A is between 11 and 20. A is greater than or equal to 0. And I should have put a /n there. Or is less or equal to 20. Okay? So let me just put a /n here. Excellent. So let's run it again and give it a value now that's completely out of range. Right? So let's put a -1. What do you think is going to happen as soon as I hit enter? Well, this one will be false. So this will not run. This will also be false. This will not run. This also will be false, and it will not run. I'm wrong. And why was I wrong? Because A less than 20 is true, right? So again, A is less than 20, so all you need is one of the members to be true for the whole statement to be true, right? So we know with an OR is different, it has a different behavior than an AND. Keep that in mind. All right, so we know that -1 is less than 20. That's not a problem for an OR statement, which means this if will yield a true. You will have to execute what's under the true statement or the true line for this if statement. All right, so let's do it again. Let's give it another value. Compile and run. I don't need to compile. I'm just going to run it. Let's give it a 22. So we know we're out of range for the 10 to 20. However, we know that it's greater than 0. Right? So what's going to happen is now the first member, A greater than 0, is true for the last if statement, and we will definitely get that. And it says here, A is greater than or equal to 0, or is less than 20. Well, we know that it is greater than 20. However, it is greater than 0 at the same time, so no problem. It will print that statement. And that's what an OR condition allows you to see. Okay? All right, so now that we've seen how an AND and OR behaves, can we combine them? And yes, there will be situations where you need to combine AND and ORs. Okay? So let's write up another if statement here. If, let's do a small range. A is greater or equal to 0, and A is less than, let's say, 5. Okay? And let me just put parentheses here for this grouping here, so you can group them. Or, and I'm just going to write an OR statement here. And I'm going to do another group here. A is greater than 7, and A is less than 10. Let's see what happens. And printf, the condition is true. And let's see, when can this happen? Okay, so this is a pretty, how should I say, convoluted condition that we're exploring here, but we want to see when is this condition true, right? So this could be a good exercise to play with. So let's compile and run. And let's give a value of 6, right? Notice the first one, A is between 0 and 10, not a problem. A is definitely greater than 0. But notice the condition is true did not happen. Well, let's think about it. Why didn't 6 trigger a true for the last if statement? Well, was A greater than 0? It's true. Was it less than 5? False. So this is a false. Okay. Let's go over here then. Was A greater than 7? False. Was A less than 10? True. However, this is an AND condition. So this whole thing is false, and this whole thing is false. So we have false or false gives you a false. So the last if statement will not run. Okay, let's run this again and try to get the condition is true to run. So let's say we put 8 this time. Okay, and notice now the condition is true. Why? Because the last range here is true. The second range here, right, or the first range here is false, right? So this one is true, but we have an OR condition. As long as you have one member or one group on either side of the OR statement true, you will get it true. Okay? So again, I need you to experiment with AND and ORs to really get a grasp of how to combine them, depending on, again, the requirements you're dealing with. So these are very basic exercises on how AND and OR behave. You need to explore it furthermore. See you then.